Behind every successful financial planning business is a system most clients never see. The advice may be brilliant, but if the operations behind the scenes are broken or messy or manual, growth becomes incredibly difficult. Today on Hadeda Insights, we're diving into one of the less glamorous but absolutely critical grounds and parts of the financial industry. How advisory businesses actually manage money flowing through the practice. We're talking about commissions, revenue tracking, team payouts, reporting, integrations, and operational clarity. And joining us is someone who's been solving this problem for nearly 2 decades. Today, we're joined by Johan Vosloo, founder and CEO of Commspace, a platform built specifically to help financial advisory businesses simplify and manage their commission and revenue operations. What started as a side project has grown into a major operational platform used by advisory businesses and practices across South Africa. Johan, welcome to Hadeda Insights.
Thank you, Matthew. It's nice to be here.
Let's get into the story behind Commspace. Take us to the beginning. What problem were you originally trying to solve when you built Commspace?
I was actually not trying to solve any problem. I was trying to build my own tech career in the financial district in Sandton in Johannesburg. And my father was a financial. They would mutually refer clients to each other, legal, accounting, and financial advice. So my dad went big on that model. And eventually had loads of these referral agreements, but trying to keep all of that straight and making sure everybody gets what they're supposed to get was becoming a challenge. So you asked me, so don't you want to build me an app to take care of this? And, as any dutiful son, I feel so bad. I make this joke often, but I always say it's true. It really is true. As any dutiful son, I say, hell no, Dad. I'm enjoying my corporate career in Johannesburg. Thank you very much. I'm not going to do something for you there in Bethlehem in the Free State, local ITO there to build your app. I'm not going to do it. But fortunately, I think I rethought that idea and I thought about it. I thought, my dad surely isn't unique with this problem. He may be a little extreme because everything he ever did was quite extreme, but he said it certainly won't be unique. So I thought about it. I thought this would be an interesting problem to solve. And I started looking around and I realized I've got loads of people in my team now who was like born around 2006. So it's really it's a while ago, 20 years now. And in 2006, I had a look around and there really weren't any good solutions. Third-party tech for financial advice. There was certainly nothing that I could find that was looking back then. It was really making commission for financial advisors. So I decided, you know what? I think this is a good problem to solve. And I'm going to solve it not just for my dad. I'm going to try and build it in such a way that bigger advice firms and multi-level and national advice firms with branches and offices throughout the country could potentially also use it. And that's how it started.
So when you sort of scoping out what's needed to happen, obviously your dad was feeding you what the issues were on his side and what his frustrations were. As you got into it and spoke to others and sort of investigating the industry and sort of, is this a problem worth solving? Did you find that this was an industry-wide issue and just how big was the problem?
Definitely. I was scratching around and I'm a software developer by trade. I always have been. But my first answer always is before building a new thing, always have a look around and say, well, what else is out there now? Before we go and build something new, let's find something that's maybe better, that's already fit for purpose. And we just use that or customize that or integrate to that or sort of that. And I really had a hard look around. And then I realized, you know what? All the big institutional players, the big life insurance companies, investment platforms, they were investing lots of money into building tech for their workforce, people that was tied and related to them. But hardly anybody was building tech for the independent financial advice space. Advisors like my dad who wasn't tied or loyal to a particular company, was trying to just, produce the best solutions for his clients. And then I found that very curious because I thought this is financial services. It's critical, the stories that I heard from my dad about life-changing decisions that he helped people make. And there was no good tech to support their offices. It seemed crazy to me. I thought, well, I can't solve all of it. I had a moment where I thought I might try to go at it, but I quickly realized, there's some industry inertia that will make it quite hard. But I can tackle parts of it and try and help that way. And that's where I decided to focus on the revenue management side of things, we're still not done. We're still solving that problem, but I think we've made good inroads there.
Something we may talk about later is just the difficulty about from firms to change and adopt new strategies and processes and systems because that change management difficult. But let's just go back to the beginning, 2006. Did you investigate what people were currently doing? Because you said with the IFAs there was a bit of a gap, nothing ready for them. Did you know what they were doing? Were they using Excel spreadsheets and trying to manually reconcile the payments?
Yeah, absolutely. There was predominantly one of two flavors. They were the flavor of advisors who literally just looked at their bank statement at the end of the month and had a look at the money that was coming in and say, yeah, that looks more or less right. And that's it. And that was really the extent of it. They looked at the top line with much more thought than that. Then there were advice firms that needed to, especially when there's two or more advisors together at a firm, they often end up sharing and putting some money back into the company. So at that time, the people that were doing it at all, not everybody was doing it, but they were trying to do it on spread. But that was an uphill battle. At that time, the source of that data was commission statements that insurance companies would if you were lucky, email you fax or by mail, not email, snail mail, printed commission statement. That was the state. That was the status quo in 2006. I mean, the cloud wasn't a thing yet. The iPhone hadn't been unveiled yet, just to kind of put it in perspective. Smartphones was only Steve Jobs only got into the stage later in 2006, I think. So yeah, it was rough days. But I mean, web-based or internet-based applications, as we call them then, it was clear to me that that was the way of the future, and sustainably and in a scalable manner deliver software to people. So yeah, that's what we're in for. But yeah, it was uphill battle. The status quo out there was, you never to people say, there's no way that an off-the-shelf bit of software can handle the complexity of our commission structures and how we handle our revenue. That was got that every day and twice on Sunday. To this day, the thing that gives me the biggest kick is when we demo and we show and people and the penny drops and they realize they're like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that I don't have to do all that copy and pasting and converting and all of that, trying to get it into one place. I don't have to do them. There's a system that I love it. It's my best ever. It's the thing that it gets me up in the morning after all these years stuff.
You know, we've moved into this space where maybe an Excel spreadsheet is very archaic and we know that there's stuff out there. And I think what we've moved into, there are so many options now and we know there's tech out there, but it's knowing which is the right one for me, which is going to work for me. And then there's that complete overwhelm when you dive into all of these different platforms and applications, and then you just give up and actually potentially end right back up at an Excel spreadsheet trying to manage it yourself. Commspace has obviously come a far way. You're solving problems as they evolve. Tell us where you've got to now. This is your floor. Just tell us what the Commspace platform offers right now. Give us some of the features and the benefits.
There's a few, and it depends what people's needs are. At a minimum, what we'll do for any financial advice business is provide a way to, in a mostly automated manner, get all your various sources of revenue, get all that information regarding it into one place automatically, and also transform and convert that data into a standard set of descriptions. So a standard set of transaction types and a standard set of product categories and a standard set of a way of classifying information so that you can compare apples with apples across your entire revenue. Now that's commission even on risk products, that's medical aid, that's short term, that's fees on investments for management fees, that's direct fee for advice, where advisors invoice their clients for on a project basis or on a retainer basis. We take all of that, and at a very minimum, if you do nothing else, we'll just get that for you automatically into one place, classify it standardly, and give you excellent reporting analytics on top of that, and give you a kind of detailed, multi-angled view of that information. If nothing else, that's the minimum you'll get out of Commspace. And where is your opportunities? Where are your bottlenecks? Where are your business areas where you're probably focusing effort and attention on that maybe you should not be, and rather getting somebody else involved on that? Because we segment all that, we take all that data and we segment it and classify it and show it to you from so many different angles. We take your client base, for example, and we age segment your client base and also by income. And we start at the high level, then just easy to understand stuff. For instance, here's a stat, which is, we call it the 80-20 principle, the Pareto principle, and it is shocking how steady and repeatable it is across all or almost all advice businesses. That 80% advice business comes from 20% of their clients. And that's almost universally true. I mean, there's some variation, but very little. And that's, some advisors know that, but there's so many that they are shocked to learn that, because they think, well, wait a minute, I'm servicing 80% of my client base, but 80% of my income comes from only the 20%. And then we take it from there, and then we do a deep dive after that. And we show it from all kinds of angles and help, and just help the advisors. And to be fair, then there's interesting things which we didn't set out to do, but by nature of what we do, we help discover mistakes and omissions. We've helped advisors discover VAT mistakes, hundreds of thousands of rands of VAT mistakes over a period of years that they were unaware of and the providers were unaware of. Find where they're not earning correctly on products, which they should. Financial advice on the product side of the business is complicated, especially when there's movement between funds and between firms. And we just help make sure everything happens like it should. We didn't set out to do that, but it's surprising how often we are able to help advisors figure that stuff out.
So Jan, how would you respond to someone who said, yeah, but my revenue streams are complicated, my commission structure is complicated, there's multiple streams, there's multiple partners and referrers. How would you respond to that?
I would say that not in the 20 years that I've been doing this, and in 10 years we've been doing it professionally, because I first did it for a side hustle, right, for a first number of years, that we've not come across a commission structure that we couldn't handle. We've built the engine, the heart of Commspace, to be flexible so that we can plug in new strategies as we encounter them. So we have seen some really weird and wonderful ways that people want to share or track or manage their revenue. And we're not saying, we're 100% fit for everybody, obviously not, but we've not come across a structure yet that we weren't able to handle, or if we weren't able to handle it at the time, we could quickly develop a strategy and plug it into the engine, and we were then able to handle it. So probably the thing today still where there's nothing like just sitting down for a demo, because people often come in and say, yeah, but our structure is complicated. We do this, and we've got a rolling average over so many months, and we got that, and we retain, and we and we say, okay, well, that's good. Illustrate it, and then So I mean, and it's not an accident, right? If you sit down for close on 20 years and you focus on one thing, eventually you, hopefully, if you manage to stay in business for that long, you manage to get rather good at that one thing. So I like to think that, us having stayed focused on revenue management for financial advisors, which is such a niche business, if you think about it, in South Africa. We haven't even gone to other territories yet. We're 100% focused in South Africa.
Johan, you say you're focusing on one thing, but this one thing is pretty important. Understanding your revenue, what you need to pay out, how it all fits together, and the insights around your revenue. I mean, that's why we're in business, isn't it?
Absolutely. So we've moved on, and we are always continually moving on from just being a bit of software that manages your commission and tells you every month how much to pay each advisor in the firm. We've moved on from that, and people describe us nowadays as kind of a key part of their kind of revenue engine of their firm, and that we achieve by integrated to so many other tech providers out there, because we are quite good at integrating, and we really understand the value of having an integrated solution set for financial advisors. In fact, that's probably one of the highest frustrations year on year in all the surveys. It's always at least in the top three, where advisors are frustrated with, they've got all these various solutions and they're all great, but they don't talk to each other, and the data sits in silos. So we understand that serves nobody. So we work really hard on trying to make sure that we integrate it with the right solutions and that the data flows. That makes a massive difference.
So I think we're going into sort of the next phase of this discussion. I want to talk about the reality of running an advisory business. You work with a lot of financial planning businesses every day. What do you think outsiders kind of misunderstand the most about actually running an advice practice? I mean, you alluded earlier to just the complexity of actually running an advice practice?
You must take it from where it comes, right? I'm not a financial advisor. I don't run a financial advisor business, but my father was a financial advisor for many years. And by the nature of what I do, from the point of view of running a financial advice practice is running a business. And most small businesses, there's a few things that are always important, always the same. I think maybe for financial advice practices, people looking from the outside in thinks financial advice businesses are sales businesses and it's all about selling products to clients. I think it's not that. I think it's a service business. It's selling the products is necessary because that's has been traditionally at least the main way that financial advisors get remunerated. But um, it's that isn't the core focus of most serious financial advice businesses and most successful financial advice businesses. The core of them is they're service businesses. They're there to service their existing clients. They're there to help them, assist them, walk a journey with them. And those are the ones that in my financial advisor, if I sit down with him, the first hour, we talk about what's happening in my life. What's up with my kids? What's up with this? What's up with that? And then maybe we'll get to some financial stuff. But he knows that's the stuff that I worry about. My business, are we scaling in the right way? Am I looking after the team well enough? He knows that's the stuff that I worry about. I think yeah, if I could single out one thing, I'd say it's really a service business and not predominantly sales.
Putting your hat back on as your own servicing advisor is not being serviced, you've obviously seen a lot of the pains and the hurts and the struggles that some of these advisory firms have. What are some of the ones that's come to your attention? You spoke earlier of lack of integration, maybe sort of legacy systems leading to some time wastage and revenue leakage and things not talking and integrating together. What are some of the pains that you've heard when you speak to your clients?
What are some of the pains in their business?
Yes, yeah.
It's different, right? Different businesses, different types of business, different sizes, but if I have to think of, let's see, a couple of common things. I think some mistakes rather, or non-optimal things that advisors often do is kind of to reinvent the wheel and not spend the time to establish some core process and procedures and kind of spend time smoothing those over. And I think another one that I see often, especially with some of the bigger groups, the bigger broken networks, is they have a lot of process and procedure, but it's very clinical. And it's, in my mind at least, clearly designed and defined from the inside out. So it's all built around to make the lives easier of the team. And they forget a little bit how do the clients experience that. Whereas the guys that's successful, like my own financial advisor and his firm, I happen to know because we talk about this stuff because I'm interested in it, that they've got a very smooth and structured process running in the background. And it makes me feel like I'm his only client. There's never ticket numbers and reference this and no, you can't talk to that division, you must talk to that department. So I think in trying to optimize and streamline and see more clients and scale their business, advisors often design processes and they forget the client experience, or they don't focus on the client experience as much. I see that quite often. It's one of the things. It's because it's top of mind because I've seen it again recently. That's why I guess that jumps up. Another one is just everybody understands that they need tech to run a financial advice firm. Some of it is just practical. Some of it is government mandated through compliance requirements, things like that. So they understand they need tech. But again, they seems to be, and it's not entirely advisors' fault. I think that's where guys like Hadeda has got a big role to play. They don't also always know how to put together a tech stack that works well and that's complementary and really complements and works in their business and the way that they want to work. I think they sometimes just buy whatever, seems to be the mainstream thing and plonk it in and try and get on with it. I think there's not enough thought applied to setting up that tech stack correctly. Yeah, I think that's probably the two things I see most commonly.
So I think you've alluded to it. I'm going to ask you then, how important do you think operational simplicity is in an industry that's already overloaded with compliance and admin?
Very. I can just relate it back to our own business. So in our own business, the bigger your client base, the more you offer should be constantly fighting complexity. Complexity is bad. We talk about a complexity budget in our business. In other words, we say, look, some things by their nature are inherently complex and there's nothing that can be done about it. We just have to deal with that complexity. Some things, however, does not need to be complex. So let's not spend our complexity budget on things where they don't need to be complex. If we don't need an expensive tool to do something, let's not get that fancy expensive tool. If we don't need a convoluted process where the current process we have with some minor adjustments is just fine, then let's do that. So yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest thing in that area.
And not to confuse simplicity with something that's very sophisticated like Commspace. It just makes the outputs simple because all the hard work's been done in the background.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. That's our mission. Let me just, let me make that. So our mission is to make revenue management inherently is complex, and we try and simplify that. We build that software, to use my earlier analogy, looking from the client side and say how is the client going to experience using the software. Make all the complex stuff. We try and handle it under the covers, so it's seamless for the clients. And we try really hard to do that. It's one of our two pillars, ease of use and great customer service. Yeah, and successful advice businesses do the same. That they know some things are complex and they handle that complexity, but they don't, because it's just people at the end of the day that needs to make all that fancy process and procedures. It's too complex. It's just going to fail.
I'm going to ask you an unfair question now. I think everyone's so hyped about AI and it's
Thank
very
you.
unfair. But there's a lot of hype around AI. From your perspective, where does AI genuinely help advisory firms, and where's it mostly noise?
Yeah, that's we still figuring out that ourselves. There's a few things that come to mind straight away where I think it's absolutely helpful and a complete no-brainer. Most advisory firms, in my mind, feels like have gotten onto this and they're not, this is not going to be a surprise. But just, meeting recordings and having that transcribed by AI and having it stored safely and having it available in a central repository as part of your client context, to me is a no-brainer, and AI is so good at it. So the things that we find most helpful is using AI to summarize either signals from various subsystems and combine it to us in one summarized context around any particular thing. In our case, internally about our clients as well. Where I think advisors and anybody, business, large or small, needs to be a little bit careful with AI is I like to think of AI as a force multiplier, meaning if the things that you are doing you're already doing well, and carefully laying AI into it will probably force multiply that and make it much better. If the things that you're doing, you're not doing well at the moment, very likely it's going to make it much, much worse. For example, support bots, chatbots. That's the obvious thing that everybody knows the best, right? Advisors think, gee, but this is wonderful. I can have a support bot that serves as a customer support and Soma as my PA. That means I can have less back office staff and streamline my operation. It's great. Unfortunately, there is such a thing as AI fatigue in the general public, and we all suffer from it. Me as well, where we all already getting a little bit of fed up and tired if you want to talk to an institution or a business of some sort and you can't get through that bot wall. It tries to be very helpful, but sometimes you just want to talk to someone. You don't want to talk to the bot. So I think that the moral there is advisor needs to be careful to keep the human element where it's needed and don't try and replace the relationship stuff. By all means, replace boilerplate stuff. By all means. I'll give you an example. So we've got a chatbot on our website, the help bot. And we spend an awful amount of time making sure that chatbot is trained on all our documentation, trained on all previous conversations, and it's getting better all the time. But we make sure that thing tries to help, but it gets out the way and hands over to a person in our support team. The moment somebody indicates that they want to speak to a person, or the moment the bot sees, but it's not really being helpful, it just gets out the way. And because of that, we actually get a lot of compliments on our bot. People have commented and said, well, it's kind of one of the best implementations of this they've seen. And sometimes It's so funny. We've seen conversations where people are having a long conversation with a bot, and our team monitors those sometimes, and they chime in and say, "Listen, I see you've been having quite a back and forth with our bot. Anything I can help with?" And they say, "No, no, no, no. I'm really enjoying talking to the bot. I want to see how clever it is. It's really amazing what it can so leave me. I'm having fun with the bot." So, basically, it's a measured approach. And then most important, internal team relationships with too much automation, too much processes. People in a company follow some of my takes on AI, which is still evolving. It's all new. It's changing every day. I love these AI experts because, the course is out and then it's already obsolete. We'll figure it out. But yeah, keep it real,
People
man.
get motivated by people, not a process. I think a lot of us will take comfort in that statement going forward with the rise of AI. Johan, a slightly lighter question. What keeps you excited about the financial industry after all of these years?
The challenge. It's a challenge. I had the opportunity in this with one of what was actually the oldest insurance company in the UK, which at that time was celebrating their 200th year of being in business. I got a first front row seat as part of that organization to see how well structured. I'm not saying all of it was great. Some of it was really a bit too much red tape, but certainly how well structured the life and investment business was in the UK even then, in the sense that the government decided early on, even in the late 90s, and said they're going to mandate and force the big institutional players to play nicely with everybody else, meaning with advisors, third party tech groups. So they created a non-profit organization and they mandated them to make sure that all the big institutional players play along nicely with one another. And I was on steering committees for at one of the levels for that. And those meetings were so boring because by that time, that machinery was so well established. Everything was running so smoothly. In South Africa, though, we don't have any of that. Now, I've had lots of discussions with lots of the institutions, and they all say, look, we all just businesses and we've all got our own fish to fry. And until such time as the government steps in and mandates something, we're not going to do this. We've got our own internal problems to solve. Why must we now sit together and try and solve the industry-wide problems if we first have to solve our own? So that creates lots of complexity, especially for independent financial advisors, which is why that's the heart of our business, is trying to provide a good solution for independent guys. And it's not only why, but it's in part why we've been so successful, because of that complexity and because of that difficult uphill battle. I wish that we could get the institutions to play along and make it easier for independent firms and for independent financial advisors to do business with them all. You'd think it'd be a no-brainer, an obvious thing that they want to do, but unfortunately, it's not really.
Johan, I really value your comments. Thank you for your involvement and your support in the space. Thank you for joining us today as well.
Matthew, thank you. Nice. We must do it again.
I think conversations like this are incredibly important because advisors often focus heavily on client outcomes, which they absolutely should do, but operational clarity and healthy systems are what allow great advice businesses to actually scale sustainably. And what's interesting is that technology done properly doesn't remove humanity from advice. It creates more space for it. There were some great intakes or outtakes from our discussion there as well. Okay, guys, if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you subscribe to Hadeda Insights for more discussions with the people shaping the future of financial advice, fintech, operations, and advisory businesses. And if you'd like to learn more about Commspace and what Johan and the team are building, you can visit www.hadeda.co.za and visit the Commspace on Hadeda's platform. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.